to another edition of Clari-T Conversations. I'm Alicia Mayo. I'm joined today by Professor James Taylor. He is a political analyst in the San Francisco, Oakland Bay area. He's been published in BuzzFeed, USA Today, and he's here with me on Clari-T Media Digital News. Welcome, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you for having me.
So we've been through a lot lately. Now we had our election, and we have had some results, but we are still counting the votes. What in the world is going on in our political climate? In your opinion, give us your perspective.
Well, I think democracy on a real high level has prevailed. I think that's what the takeaway should be, at least in the short term, is that democracy won. We were on the precipice of going in one direction or another. We could have turned hard right and gone further into apartheid and reaction, or we could have gone in the direction we've turned in. And I think a lot of people are relieved throughout the country, celebrating the fact that despite all of the obstacles, all of the noise, all of the obstruction, the people's voice came through clearly and resoundingly, and led Donald Trump into being a one-term president, one of the few in American history, one of the few in modern political history, and only the second since Jimmy Carter. So that to me is, I think, very powerful, with all of the focus on Black voters, African-American voting issues throughout the campaign, but especially as Donald Trump addressed them, suggesting that he was going to get this surge of Black vote support, especially amongst Black men. Well, he will forever know that it was Black men and women in Detroit, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and Atlanta who signed the death knell of his political career forever and rendered him a one-term president. And they were actually at the forefront of the opposition to Donald Trump entirely from the night that he became president in 2016 in terms of vote support for Hillary Clinton. 1 and 2 was African-American men and African-American women, African-American men, and then all other groups. So they have been consistently the opposition to Donald Trump, and they understood the implications of all of his politics and the backlash that it represented, and what it could do for them in their future in the country and their children's future.
And to me, that it feels obvious. It feels obvious that that's the way Black folks should have voted. That's how we traditionally vote when we have been suppressed to no end. We do what we have to do. We show up at the polls and we vote the right way. But what about those other folks from other races, other groups, who decided that instead of voting Republican and doing what they normally do, that they would do something different this time? Did you feel that difference? Do you know that is what has happened? I believe that's what's happened.
A lot of very contradictory and sort of complex things happen here. Donald Trump lost support with white men, but he gained it with non-whites across the board, including Black women. He gained with Latinos. He gained with Latinas. He gained with Black men, but he lost with white men. He gained with people who made $100,000 or more, and he gained with he had 40% of college-educated whites. So this myth that it was, the Reagan Democrats or the white working class that was supportive of Donald Trump, that was dispelled in 2016 when we realized that his support base had very little to do with economic anxiety and more to do with culture and cultural reaction. And that's, I think, what has sort of been consistent throughout the 2020 campaign is the saliency of culture and culture issues around race and gender and sexuality and all of these other issues in terms of the direction of the country, what Biden calls us, sort of fighting for the soul of the country.
Yes.
Those are, the issues that were important to people, and you got all kinds of complex vote results. I think what we need to do is sort of pull back from the exit polling and recognize that they tend to be exaggerated and they tend to get corrected when measured up against the U.S. Census, the voting age population versus the census, and the idea that Black men gave 18%, for example, support to Donald Trump has already been dispelled because it'll be closer to 13, 14%, which is what any Republican can get. I think people underestimate how important and powerful partisanship is. Partisanship explains why 70 million people voted for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump and the Republicans did a good job, and Stacey Abrams did a great job of getting out those people who we could call the never voters. Most parties focus on the likely voter. People who voted last time is how you measure the likely voter. But the never voter is the voter that Stacey Abrams successfully mobilized. Those people that we all know who just never vote. And you can get them to vote if you make a concerted effort to speak to them in a way that resonates. And that's what Stacey Abrams has demonstrated as a model. And yet you also have, with Donald Trump demonstrating his own approach, which was to sort of go hard right, go hard culture. But when he swung back to the general election, he did make a lot of appeals to Latinos. I mean, he was in the Oval Office holding a can of Goya beans, and celebrating, Latino culture, Latino Heritage Month. He had a number of Latino people speaking at the RNC convention. And he made headway. I think we have to acknowledge campaigns. Joe Biden ran the superior campaign under COVID conditions. A lot of times we don't look at the game that both campaigns played, but Biden, I think, was very effective in a lot of areas once he got a second win in South Carolina. And so to sort of think about what other voters did, a lot of contradiction, a lot of surprise. People that were supposed to support Trump didn't show up. Trump, I think, cost his own election. You can see it in the pattern of the way in which in the last days of counting Pennsylvania and Georgia, all of the mail-in ballot voting was coming in blue, strong, even from red districts that Trump was otherwise winning, but those votes were coming because Biden and the Democrats encouraged mail-in voting where Trump did not. And so that's why he's confused as to what happened to him. He had one strategy and his voters listened to him, and it backfired because they didn't mail in their ballots. And that's what you saw carry the day in the second wave and third wave of vote counting.
So the ballot vote, the mail-in ballot, that started so early. That process started early, and it was consistent effort, and it made it easier. It made it easier for people to vote. So now here in Georgia, okay, they're still counting the votes. Is that true? Is that true? You talking about Stacey Abrams and all of her work, but now they're
certified the votes everywhere. They actually have to do actual counting for the final tally, but they've certified the victories across the board. And there's nowhere else for Donald Trump or the Republicans to challenge. They've had, I think, a record of 1-36 in the federal court system. Many of these are Bush and Trump appointees. You get so much paranoia and concern and fear. People were talking about, Donald Trump has 200 judges and he's packing the courts. And, as a student of political science, I'm like, well, Obama appointed 900 judges. And Obama judges and Bush judges, who are more moderate Republicans than what Trump was trying to appoint, dominate the federal court system and the circuit courts. That's what people don't realize. Again, Trump took 4 years, and most of those 120 appointments that he did get of the 200 he got were literally, how do you say this, held by Mitch McConnell in the same way the Supreme Court seat was, to prevent Obama from appointing those remaining 120 seats. And that would have given Obama nearly 1,000 judges. So a lot of people who react and overreact, you see them in social media overreacting, talking about Trump's judges and Trump being successful at the judges. Even national media, harp on Trump judges. Well, not only are there certain behaviors and practices and collegial obligations in the building, but it's also the case that Obama's judges far outnumber Trump's judges, and we're seeing that result. That's why Trump went 1 in 36, because Obama's judges are throughout the federal system. And most people don't understand that that's what's happened, but also moderate Bush Republicans who are less, I think, less than the hard right MAGA, branded people.
So what about the Senate races that you talked about in our last conversation and the concerns about those Senate seats? How's that looking?
Well, you had some surprise. There was a surprise in South Carolina that Harrison lost so badly.
My conversation with political analyst Dr. James Taylor continues on Clari-T Media. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, tap on the notifications bell so that you'll receive the latest episodes, and follow us on Facebook. Thank you.